좋다.
Kiss me like you mean it, she said, unaware he was her new billionaire boss. The city sprawled below them like a sea of stars, each light a tiny universe of its own. Maya pressed her palm against the cool glass of the floor-to-ceiling window, feeling the faint vibration of the building's pulse beneath her fingertips. 43 stories up, the world seemed both impossibly distant and intimately close. You're thinking too hard again. His voice came from behind her, warm and low, carrying that hint of amusement that always made her stomach flutter. She didn't turn around, but she could feel him approaching, could sense the shift in the air as he moved closer. Maybe I like thinking, she replied, watching his reflection materialize in the glass beside hers. Even in the ghostly mirror image, he was devastatingly handsome, sharp jaw, dark hair swept back from his forehead, eyes that seemed to see straight through all her carefully constructed walls. And maybe, he said, now close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. You think because you're afraid of feeling. Maya finally turned to face him. They'd met 3 weeks ago at an art gallery opening, one of those pretentious affairs where the wine was overpriced, and the conversation even more so. She'd been there covering the event for the lifestyle magazine, where she worked as a junior writer, taking notes on her phone, and trying to look like she belonged among the designer dresses and inherited wealth. He'd been different from the start. While everyone else had clustered around the featured artist, a temperamental sculptor from Prague, he'd been standing alone in front of a small abstract piece in the corner, a painting most people had walked past without a second glance. When Maya had approached, curious about what had captured his attention, he'd smiled at her like she was the most interesting thing in the room. "What do you see?" he'd asked, gesturing to the canvas. She'd studied the chaotic swirls of blue and gray, the violent slashes of white cutting through them, a storm, or maybe the moment right before one, that suspended feeling when the air gets heavy and everything goes still. He'd looked at her then, really looked, and something had shifted between them. Most people just see a mess. Most people don't really look. They'd talked for hours that night, about art and ambition, about the difference between existing and living. He told her his name was Alex, just Alex, and that he worked in business, which seemed deliberately vague, but she hadn't pressed. There was something refreshing about his reluctance to impress her with credentials or connection. In a city where everyone was constantly networking, constantly performing, he seemed content to simply be. Now, standing in his penthouse apartment with the city lights painting shadows across his face, Maya felt that same magnetic pull that had drawn her to him from the beginning. But tonight, there was an edge to it, a desperate quality she didn't quite understand. "I'm leaving the city next week," she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "There's a position opening up at the main office. Senior writer. It's everything I've been working toward." Something flickered across his expression, surprise, maybe, or concern. The main office, Sterling Media Group headquarters, downtown. She turned back to the window, unable to meet his eyes. "I interviewed last month, but I didn't want to say anything until I knew for sure. They called today. I got it." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Maya's chest tightened. This thing between them, whatever it was, had been deliberately undefined, floating in that comfortable space between casual and serious. But now, faced with the reality of separation, she realized it had become something more without either of them acknowledging it. "Alex, she stopped, unsure how to continue. "How do you tell someone you might be falling for them when you've both been pretending this was nothing?" He stepped closer, and suddenly his hands were on her shoulders, gently turning her to face him. The city lights cast shadows that made his features look carved from stone, but his eyes were soft, almost vulnerable. "Don't go," he said simply. Maya felt her heart stumble. "It's my career. It's what I've been working toward for 5 years." "I know." His hands slid down her arms, leaving trails of electricity in their wake. "I know, and I'm being selfish, but don't go." She should have been offended by the presumption. They'd known each other less than a month. They'd never defined what this was, never made promises or plans beyond the next dinner, the next late-night conversation. But looking up at him now, seeing the naked honesty in his face, she felt something crack open inside her chest. "Give me a reason to stay," she whispered. He cupped her face in his hands and Maya's breath caught. She'd imagined this moment, of course she had. But the reality of it was so much more intense than her fantasies. His thumb traced the curve of her cheekbone with a reverence that made her knees weak. "I can think of several," he murmured, "but they all lead back to the same truth. These past 3 weeks with you have been the most real thing in my life and longer than I can remember. Alex, let me finish." His forehead touched hers, and Maya closed her eyes, drowning in the proximity of him. "I know we said this was casual. I know we agreed not to complicate things. But somewhere between that first night at the gallery and right now, you became essential. And I don't want to go back to a life where I don't get to see you. Try to hide your smile when I say something ridiculous or what. You get passionate about proper semicolon usage. Or listen to you defend abstract art to people who don't deserve your time." Maya opened her eyes to find him staring at her with an intensity that stole her breath. "That's not a reason to turn down my dream job." "No," he agreed, "but maybe this is." He kissed her then, but it was tentative, almost careful, a question rather than a statement. Maya made a frustrated sound in the back of her throat and fisted her hands in his shirt, pulling him closer. If this was going to happen, if they were going to cross this line, they'd been dancing around for weeks. She didn't want hesitation. She pulled back just enough to speak, her lips still brushing against his. "Kiss me like you mean it." Something ignited in his eyes. The careful control he always maintained, that easy, unflappable demeanor shattered. His hands slid into her hair, and when he kissed her this time, there was nothing tentative about it. It was consuming, demanding, a complete dissolution of the boundaries they'd maintained. Maya felt herself melting into him, felt 3 weeks of tension and unspoken desire finally finding release. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya's thoughts were spinning. This changed everything. This made leaving impossible, and staying terrifying, and she didn't know which way was up anymore. "Stay," Alex whispered against her lips. "I'll make it worth your while. I promise." Maya wanted to. God, she wanted to. But she'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let her career be derailed by feelings, no matter how intense. "I can't just." "Then I'll find you something better. Something that doesn't take you away." His hands were still in her hair, his forehead pressed to hers like he couldn't bear to put distance between them. "Whatever you're making now, I'll double it, triple it." She froze, pulling back to look at him properly. "What?" "I know people. I have connections. Let me make some calls." "Alex, you can't just throw money at this." She stepped out of his embrace, her mind racing. "That's not how it works. This position is about advancement, about building my career, not just a paycheck." He looked suddenly uncomfortable, and Maya felt the first stirrings of unease. "Who are you?" she asked slowly. "What do you really do?" "It's complicated." "Uncomplicated." Alex ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked uncertain. "My full name is Alexander Sterling." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Sterling, as in Sterling Media Group, as in the company she was about to start working for, as in, "You're the owner," she breathed. "Oh my God, you're the CEO. You're my new boss." The blood drained from her face as the full implications crashed over her. She'd been kissing her new boss. She'd been falling for a billionaire who'd been playing at being normal. Everything about the past 3 weeks suddenly felt staged, manipulated. "Maya, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me this entire time." She grabbed her purse from the couch, needing to move, needing to get out before the tears gathering in her eyes could fall. "Did you know when we met? Did you know I worked for you?" "No. I swear, I had no idea." "Sterling Media has hundreds of employees. I don't personally know everyone who works there." "But you knew before tonight." His silence was answer enough. Maya felt something shattering inside her chest. "When?" "Last week. One of my executives mentioned they'd hired a new senior writer, Maya Chan, and I put it together, and you didn't think to tell me." Her voice cracked on the last word. "You let me stand here and talk about leaving the city for a job at your company, and you didn't say anything?" "I wanted to, but..." He moved toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. "But what? You were having too much fun playing pretend? Slumming it with the employees?" "That's not fair." "Fair?" Maya laughed, and it sounded bitter even to her own ears. "You want to talk about fair? I thought you were different. I thought you saw me as an equal. But this whole time, you've been my boss and I've been what? An amusing distraction? You know that's not true." His voice was raw now, stripped of its usual smooth control. Everything I said tonight was real. Everything I feel is real. Is it? Or are you just used to getting what you want? She moved toward the door, but he stepped into her path. Maya, please. Don't go, not like this. She looked up at him, at this man who was somehow both a stranger and the person who'd made her feel more alive than she had in years. I started Sterling on Monday, and when I do, I need you to pretend tonight never happened. Can you do that? No, then I'll quit. I'll turn down the position and find something else. That's not what I want. I don't care what you want. The words exploded out of her, carrying weeks of unspoken vulnerability. You lied to me. Maybe not explicitly, but by omission. You let me think we were on equal footing when the whole time there was this massive power imbalance I didn't even know about. Alex's jaw tightened. I never used that power. I never would. But it was there. It's been there since the beginning, and I was too blind to see it. She pushed past him, and this time he let her go. At the door, she paused without turning around. I'll see you Monday, Mr. Sterling. Let's keep it professional. She didn't wait for his response. The elevator ride down 43 floors felt like falling, and maybe it was. Maybe she'd been falling since that first night at the gallery, and this was simply the landing, hard and bruising and inevitable. As the lobby doors opened and the night air hit her face, Maya let the tears finally fall. Somewhere above her, in a penthouse apartment that now felt like a different world, was a man who'd made her feel seen and valued and important. A man who also happened to be a billionaire with the power to make or break her career with a single phone call. Monday would come too soon. And when it did, she'd have to face Alexander Sterling, not as Alex, the man who made her laugh and challenged her thinking, but as her boss, the man who could never be anything more, no matter what she might have wished. For in those suspended moments, before the truth came crashing down, the city lights blurred through her tears as Maya walked away, carrying with her the memory of a kiss that meant everything and changed nothing at all.